New business. Councilor Ford.
Amen.
Sorry.
I thought we were done, I apologize, but I wanted to thank all the councilors for their cards, their support, their phone calls, willing to pick up my phone calls. I want to thank Sear, Councilor Sear, showed up down the Cape with all the family down there, representing the council. I thought that was awesome. And Timmy, your advice and your compassion, helping me with the house and all that went on, I really appreciate it. So thank you to the council and yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Creighton.
Mr. President, I believe a number of meetings ago, we had asked that the Off-Street Parking Commission come before us because of some scheduled conflicts that was unable to happen, but I believe we have representatives here tonight, so I would welcome them to come and give us an update on any of their actions since meeting here roughly a year ago to discuss their business.
Yeah, do you got any people from the Off-Street Parking Commission? I see Bob. Come on up. Maybe you can sit in the front row. I'm not sure if you heard Councilor Creighton. Okay. Councilor Creighton.
I was expecting to be the chairman of the commission, but any representative at this point, they can answer questions the council may have. You're all welcome to come out and center.
This is Bob Knopfler, if everybody doesn't know him. And if you'd like, if you feel more comfortable, people have, you can sit in here or out there, whatever your choice is.
Sit right here for the flowers and stuff.
How you doing?
You guys gonna make him sit up there by himself?
Big boy.
Jeez,
Council, can you just, I'm not sure if everybody heard.
Yeah, no, I'll just repeat it. So, roughly a year ago, the council had met with you, and we had a discussion about the commission as it stands and the ordinance that established it and your functions, et cetera. We had met individually a number of times with you, and also, I think conversations continue about what function the commission serves. And I was wondering if you could update us on any actions that have taken place over, again, roughly the past year. I apologize for not having the dates before me, in terms of your meetings and what's happened.
Well, there's a number of questions in that statement. I don't think we ever spoke about the functions of the commission specifically, because they were laid out in the statute.
Yeah.
Questions that we addressed related to Off-Street Parking Commission. We responded to that. I thought I made it fairly clear that we have no objections to the commission expanding. That we tried to explain that the premise for disbanding was probably not correct. If the city council, or the mayor's office wants to take over the administration of the parking lots and fund the required maintenance, they now take the money which was originally designated to fund those activities as performed by the commission and use it for other purposes. So the flow of funds goes to the city and then is allocated in amounts that I think everybody recognized once they heard them were insufficient to maintain any of the lots in the manner that you folks wish that they would be maintained. So that hasn't changed. There have been actions more ad hoc that Jay can explain to you to respond to Councilor Cahill's questions, and I believe yours. This is secondhand about the city council meeting that occurred earlier this year, and that is what are other cities and towns doing with their lots, and some examples of perhaps innovative actions that they took to improve the quality of the lots. And Jay situation hasn't changed since the last time we've been here. It's all about funding. We continue to maintain, we don't really have a commission, but I'm only speaking really on behalf of Dick Downey and myself, with somebody who's ill, so he's not able to attend when we discuss these issues at Lynn. That it's a matter of will and a matter of money. We don't control the funds. There's an argument that we should, and over the course of several years, more than several years, the administrative mechanisms in the city have kind of usurped what the commission in statute is supposed to do. So if you want an independent commission, and you want lots that are maintained at a high level of quality, in which capital investments can be made to repave, reline, refence, relight, and provide some kind of mechanism, whether it's a lot attended or automated devices to collect revenues, which are not being collected now, or being collected unevenly. For instance, some people have monthly parking permits they pay, and other people park in the lots because there's no attendant and no sanction. So none of that has changed, none of that's been resolved. So if there's a specific question.
Well, I mean, essentially, I don't want to monopolize this discussion, so the councilors feel free to jump in, but essentially, I mean, the question is specific. What action has been taken? And I guess, I mean, I know you meet monthly. During those meetings, was it just general discussion about the lots? Were there specific actions that were taken? I just want to know, I guess, what
we have discussed, and this has been a multi-year discussion, we have discussed that we requested that we cooperate with the city and sell a lot to private party through the city's economy. We put funds aside for capital improvements. It doesn't make any sense. We don't have enough money to do all the necessary capital improvements to all the lots. We would have to cherry pick, prioritize, and do them in a prioritized manner. But it makes no sense that if I'm opposed to it, I would not support it, I wouldn't vote for it, to use that money for capital improvements and then have no way of supporting ongoing maintenance. The problems are normal wear and tear, vandalism, dumping of refuse on the lots, all those kinds of things, and they require periodic systematic maintenance. They require some level of supervision of the lots, and we don't have personnel to do that. And it's a function where we have a responsibility without resources. We provide some of a convenient whipping boy for the complaints about the lots, but in reality, there's nothing we can do about the way things are operated now.
So have you taken any votes? I guess I'm just like,
well, the votes, I can't give you votes from memory. We take minutes of each meeting. You can certainly produce those numbers to see what.
There's nothing significant, I guess, done in the past.
No, we looked at budgets, we looked at projections, we discussed the issues and possible solutions, and we keep circling back to the same things that I'm discussing with you here tonight.
Question? Councilor Calucci.
Pete, I'll be able to.
Councilor Capano.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about that, what we keep coming back to all the time? Collect a certain amount of revenue every year. I mean, what is supposed to happen? Because, like you said, there's an argument that you should be able to keep it, which makes sense. You take money in, and in order to maintain the lots, or modernize them, or pave them, whatever, that needs to be done to them, you need to have a certain amount of money coming in. But the money goes into the general fund. So how is it supposed to work? I mean, that does make sense. I mean, if there was money there, you obviously could do the work. If there's no money there, there's no money to do anything. So how do we know what is supposed to happen there? Because we go back and forth with this all the time. It's really the crux of the whole problem. Somebody that can give an answer?
Yeah, I mean, is that potentially a question for the law department or for Mr. Canard and Mr. Fenton?
I would say, well, I mean, right, then, if he knows. I mean, I want to know.
Sure.
Should address that, because we never really get into that. And that's really the crux of the problem. Where does the money come from?
Per the statute that created the off-street parking commission, the money goes into the general fund, and the money is appropriated for the off-street parking commission to use on an annual basis by the mayor and the city council. The money will go to the general fund in the first instance, and then resent to the off-street parking commission to be utilized as they see needed.
So,
That's my state statute.
Councilor Capano.
so I'm just trying to think this out loud here. So, whether there was a parking commission or not, if there's not enough money being allocated to the parking lots now, why would there be any more money allocated to the parking lots if there wasn't a parking commission? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, that's why, the problem seems like there's not enough money being, there isn't enough money to take care of the problem.
So there's some relatively quick cost solutions to help maximize revenue. We really have an antiquated system. I don't think either of these gentlemen are arguing against that currently right now. We're not getting all the revenue that we should be. And the direction and the group that's essentially supposed to be taking the lead, and again, we've met, you guys are all have the city of Lynn in your best interest, and you're working hard, and we understand that. And I understand you may not have the powers to be, but it has been a year, and this is really, again, supposed to be your role. You're supposed to be leading this. For instance, if you were to come, I know Jay comes from time to time, Mr. Fenton comes before the council to ask. The city departments, they come all the time to ask for transfers of money for specific things. You're supposed to be, I guess, the brain of parking for the general city. And I don't see, we have a study from 2007 that really, it bullet points these pretty simple ideas that would help create that revenue that Councilor Capano mentioned. I just don't see how, again, just another year of inaction, even after calling you the last time and having this discussion. Well, I guess I still don't understand what the purpose of the commission is if you're not doing anything.
Well, one could ask that question of probably many of the governing boards in the city. It's an appropriate question to ask of the parking commission. But I think if you ask it about other functions in the city, there's perhaps a different basis for criticism in that they are funded. So you can take a look at the amount of money which the off-street parking brings in, and the amount of money which the city returns to the commission to carry out its various duties. The gentleman from the law department, whose name I don't know, said that per the statute, it's my understanding also that in this statute, it says the city will fund all expenses necessary for the commission to carry out its obligations. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's the import of the language of the statute. It doesn't. Simple as that. The money doesn't come back. If the money that when it came back, we could undertake a number of different things. So it's when you talk about lack of action, we act through employees of the commission. We don't have them. We have an executive director who's also head of the parking department. So we have a couple of water attendants, but we don't have any money to outsource that kind of work to landscapers, pavers, all the various types of service organizations that exist within the city, and we'd be happy to utilize.
Councilor Trahan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Cotton, so now, since you've been on that, I don't know how many years you've been on that, I know it's been quite
It's
a
lost a
long
long
time.
time, yes.
Now, was there any time where the money was coming back to you guys, and you were?
Not in a systematic flow, not in my recollection. There were issues early on with the collection of funds, and
guys never really had control of the money, you really didn't have the ability to fix the lots. My understanding, this is where, and Jay, I want to ask you too, so now where do you get the money back from the general fund? Does the mayor send back money, or do you guys request money and tell her, hey, I need this, or how does that?
It's through the budget process, basically.
So every year when she does your budget, she allots the money from the following year into the next year's budget for the improvements?
Right. And the difference between now and 15 years ago, we probably have as much money in the budget now as we had 15 years ago. So what's happened over time is, relatively speaking, we had better resources back then because things weren't as costly.
Now, have you talked to the mayors over time, not just,
Yes.
Mayor Kenny, but Clancy and all them? Have you always
Yes.
asked for more money, and what's been the answer?
Exactly what we could put in the budget. And case in point is even this last budget. We put in, not to address all of these problems by any stretch of the imagination, but as I've said here, I think before the council, there's two major categories. There's capital improvements of the lots, okay? And then there's maintenance. And they're both critical and they both go hand in hand because as Mr. Connaughton has alluded to, there's no sense in taking the capital improvement money, just to throw it out to spend it, to make something look good for a little while. And case in point is the weeds, as an example, around the lots. We need to do the job right if we're going to fix the problem. And
But the problem is, you're not getting the funds. That's why I'm actually getting frustrated by this, because I think we keep attacking the two of you, and if you're not getting the money, how do we expect them to fix the problem? You know what I mean? So I think this needs to go up a little bit higher.
Look, may I make a point, Councilman? I'll let Jay give you the detailed numbers, but just philosophically. The number of spaces now, and I can't give them to you off the top of my head, because over time, we've, as I said, we've transferred lots to the city or for other purposes. But if we have X number of parking spaces in various areas, we probably are collecting revenue at some percentage. Let's say it's 60% of what the maximum could be that we can utilize them for. Jay can give you the amount of money that the lots bring in and the amount of money that the city allocated to us for operation of the lots. And if you want to give those two numbers,
I'd like those numbers.
I know, because every year, because I asked them, I say what,
Can you give us the numbers, Jay?
Well, let me, I think I said this at the budget meeting, that, and I'll use it as an example also to ask for a formal question, which is this year, we've had $250 in the budget prior to this year, okay, for maintenance of all the lots in the city, not counting snow plowing and salting. Okay? We put in, because we weren't prepared to give a plan, because different people were talking about what are we going to do here, so we put in $40,000 in the budget, okay, to change that 250 to 40,000. And the thinking behind that was, at least we'll be able to go in and do a real good job cleaning them up. Not only cleaning them up, and when I say cleaning them up, I don't mean just go cut the bits, okay? Because we've done that in the past 8 weeks, okay? And just to get rid of the weeds, but it really doesn't do the job. And what came back was $18,000 in that land. So we went from requesting 40
and you got 18.
down to 18. I mean, I can't imagine what would have happened if we asked for $500,000.
So when you come to us during these things, why don't you should just tell us that. You should let us know, because everybody's frustrated with the budget. I know, just hear me out. If they're not getting the money, if it's going to general fund and they're not getting the money to provide the services, how can we blame them? And that's my problem with all this.
I for the last 6 months, give you the other side of the equation, which is how much the lots in the end currently.
Yeah, that number I have, I can give give you, last fiscal year, we brought in $259,000.
So if we get
We got 18,000.
So if we get $259,000, and with the amount of money that we have put aside for capital improvements, we will, it may take a couple of years to roll through the whole process, but we will give you lots that the city can be proud of. But,
Yeah, so there's the answer in a nutshell. I mean, you can't bring in $250,000 and give them 18,000 to keep all those lots clean. It's just not right. You know, that's why we continue to come back to this. We come back to the same answer. We need to go to higher above. We need to ask for the money. We need to make a line item of what needs to be fixed. Like I know up at Wyman Square, we're busting up the seams up there. The businesses are doing well. We need more parking. That's the first thing that should be addressed. It needs to be addressed.
and that can be addressed, obviously, in a couple of ways. One of them, which is to clean up, reline, and all that. So we also suggested projects for expansions.
So the money should come out of the general fund where it went, and we should make a priority of the worst lots, fix them, and get the money back in the general fund, and it should start going back to you people. You can't just take it all, put it in the general fund, and then not take care of the parking lots, because you don't, that's what's gonna happen. You know, you can't blame them.
Councilor Creighton.
Mr. President, through you to the members, I certainly respect a number of the points that were made here. I do think, though, that commissions, as well as councils, as well as the executive branches, they all need to be held accountable. And in this case, I think the aim of this commission was to really provide a game plan, as well as to expend the money when the money is available for you. And I guess we came and had the same conversation, you pointed back to that, and I understand it does seem like we're having the same conversation again now. We get asked that certain actions be taken. I mean, I know that we've cited the same study time and time again.
Council, I'm interrupting, but I'm not sure of the specific actions that you directed at us taking. It's the gist of the discussions, as I recall, was whether the commission should be abolished.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was certainly, the main focal point of the conversation, and then it came back to, again, we need a commission that will do things. And even if that's as much as you articulating a game plan to the council, which we've yet to hear. You may have had these conversations with other folks in terms of what you need from the budget. I haven't heard it. I don't know what other members here, who else has heard this game plan, essentially. And additionally, we didn't set up, this isn't something that this council has set up. We did not set up this commission. It was established long before, and as Jim Lamont had said, it's set up in such a way that the money is contributed to the general fund and then contributed back. So I don't think any individual is taking or stealing money from the commission and not provide. I think we should use it in slightly more appropriate terms. And this is a state law. This is something that I think has lost its usefulness. And I think as a council, we need to move forward and pull the reins back.
If I can, I'm just going to take a little liberty from the chair, if I may. This is an issue that we, as Councilor Brendan Creighton has discussed for a period of time. It's always been a passion of Councilor Cahill's, and really is a legitimate issue. I've known Bob Connaughton for years, members of the Off-Street Parking Commission, and I can say right now, Bob Connaughton is a man of integrity, a man of his word, is a hard-working man, and I know nobody is saying otherwise. But what I'm seeing is that the existing structure right now, whether it's the council's responsibility, the off-street parking responsibility, the mayor's responsibility, isn't working. The lots are in a condition that they're in. We need to expand Wyoming Square, the parking lot behind there, to but to keep those businesses vibrant for the long term. And I have absolutely no issue with Councilor Creighton's concern about improving these lots, but the lots are in the condition that they're in now. So we have to refocus, and whether it's abolishing the Off-Street Parking Commission, coming up with a new plan to move forward, we need to move forward together collectively to address the problem, because it's not working, the condition of these lots right now, and that's the real issue. You know, I think it's, the council tonight approved the mayor's chief of staff as a new member of the Off-Street Parking Commission. You don't really get more of a direct line to the mayor's office than that. So I think our focus should be moving forward to address the issue, which I know that's what Councilor Creighton wants to do, to fix these problems and rectify the issues that have been going on for 30 years, so that we're not in this position year in and year out. Councilor Trahant.
Thank you. Not to disagree with my colleague, I certainly have a lot of respect for him, but the answer is not to me. I mean, I've known, Mr. Khan for a lot of years. He is a great man of integrity. He works hard. He cares about this city. And I know that if he was getting the money every year, and along, not just him himself, but the rest of the commissioners, they were getting that $250,000, these lots would not look like this. Because he takes pride in it. And the answer is not to abolish it. Don't, to me, that's like giving him a punishment. It's not, we shouldn't be giving him a punishment. Give him the money. Give him the money. Let's do it right. The way it should be done. I'm sure it's done another way in other towns. If we took the time to investigate it. The money shouldn't be going to free cash. The money, they're earning the money, they're working the money, they're responsible for taking care of it. The money should be going to them, not to the general fund. That's how I feel about it.
Can I make a comment?
If you could hold for a moment, I'm going to go to Councilor Capano and then back to Mr.
It
Fenton.
seems like, everybody wants it done, and, how do we do it? That's the question. So it seems like there's two ways, maybe there's more ways, but two ways come to mind. You could say, here's XYZ amount of dollars, 100,000, 50,000, whatever it is. Here's the money. We want you to take that money and utilize it to improve the lots, and then come up with a plan. Or you could come up with a plan and to improve the lots, and then come up with an estimate of what that might cost. And maybe you could break it down into different lots and say, this one's going to be 20,000, this one's going to be 40, this one will be 30. We'd like to do all of them. Maybe we can only get enough for one of them. But one way or the other, in order to solve the problem, I think that's what has to happen. Either you need the money or you need some sort of a plan. And maybe that's something that could be worked on, and maybe, some of the councils could work with you there.
We had to talk out of
If you don't mind, Mr. Fenton was waiting.
Just to give you an idea of the magnitude that what we're talking about, I'll cite two things. One, at the budget meeting, Councilor Cahill had asked me to check and Brockton about a lot that was down. So I did. I followed through. There's a 130 space lot. It was fixed a little over a year ago. I don't have the exact figures.
Where is that lot, the 130 space lot?
Brockton.
Brockton.
Okay? They spent $450,000 in a 130 space lot. To give you an idea, that lot's a lot smaller than our Buffalo Street lot. It's a lot smaller than our Ellis Street lot. The second point I would make to drive home the magnitude of what we're talking about, you mentioned, Councilor Trahan, Wyoming Square. And I don't know if everybody's aware on the council, but there's been activity from the business people in the square. They've come up with, they got somebody to do an engineering drawing, okay, to improve that lot. That's going to have at least a $400,000 tab on it. Okay, so we have some money, but the question is, unless we know that there can be something else, just to spend it isn't going to do the job. And I agree.
Yeah, bottom line is, bottom line is,
is
we need the money.
right.
It's the bottom line. Every year, $200,000 has to go in there, and then you wouldn't be coming up now having to dig up for $500,000 to do something like Wyoming Square that badly, that needs to be done.
Councilor Calucci.
Jay, you sold this lot on Sidewalk Street, right?
Yes.
You know, you got that?
We have approximately, don't hold me to the exact dollar, but approximately $235,000.
All right. And you're raising $259,000 out of the off-street parking lot, you're telling me?
Every year, pretty much.
Yes,
All right.
and we should be doing a lot better, by the way.
Okay, now what lots are performing? About
What
what
lots
lots
of,
are not performing?
that's a tough question. I don't think any of them are.
Lake
I mean,
Street,
and let me explain that,
Go ahead.
because, and Mr. Canapa alluded to it earlier. We have, our budget has been decimated if you look at over the years.
I know that, I'm checking what parking lots have customers, that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, activity?
Yes.
Buffum has activity, Ellis has activity, Andrew has activity, Lamb Square has activity, okay?
But I
It's not the activity that's an issue.
I go by King Henry Street, there's not many cars there.
No, well, okay. You
I'm
take any lot in the city, okay? The one advantage that we have that contributes to that 259,000, by the way, otherwise it would be a lot more, is the fact that we've been able to maintain, and I'll use the word reasonable, okay? We should be doing a lot better, but we've been able to reasonably maintain monthly parkers. Now, what's a monthly parker do? They pay us a monthly fee and they come and go as they please.
That's on Ellis Street, right?
No, we do it on Ellis Street, we do it on Buffalo Street, we do it on Andrew Street,
Okay.
okay? If, at that point, okay, if a monthly parker chooses not to park on a lot, I don't worry about it, because I've been paid for the use of that space and the right for that individual to come and go as they need to, in and out of that lot. But what's happening is, you take Ellis Street, I'm just singling Ellis Street out. We used to have lot attendants there, and they acted as a gatekeeper, if you will, in terms of who came in and who left. And the non-monthly parkers had to pay because the attendant was there. The attendant is no longer there. What's happening now is people are going in there and they're parking and they're not paying and then they're leaving. But what's noticeable, because we've heard from a number of monthly parkers, is they're starting to say, well, why should we pay? Okay, when these people appear to come and go freely and don't have to pay anything. So that issue needs to be fixed. I checked in Lawrence at Councilor Cahill's suggestion, okay? They have, I don't have the number in front of me, but they have, I think, 8 or 9 surface lots. Every one of them smaller than what we have in the city of Lynn. They have 2 garages too, but I'm not going to talk about those. They have surface lots, and every one of those surface lots has a full-time attendant in them.
I just have, we're going to stay with Council Tron, then go to Council Cahill.
I didn't finish yet, Tim.
I apologize, Council Calucci.
Could we think about maybe leasing these lots and selling some of them? Look at Boston, all the parking lots in Boston, they flourish, they're privately owned. Why can't we do something like that to get out of the way and stop the bleeding?
Because we need the lots for parking.
That's the same thing, private people do it, not us. Same thing, same people will park, but to be maintained with lights, it will stop the bleeding, it will be out of our hands. That's my suggestion.
May I respond to that?
Mr. Canapa.
It's a perfectly reasonable proposition. It's one that we've talked about ourselves. The issue you will face is the cost to park it will be significantly higher. And that's something that always is resistance from the council, resistance from the mayor's office, that people, couldn't afford the kind of rates that private ownership would require. But it takes, if that's, you can put property on the tax rolls, and there's all kinds of, it's do the math, is basically what happens. You weigh all the different considerations, and that's something that, we would certainly be willing to go along with.
If you look into it, did you guys look into it?
Yeah, we've looked into it. We'll be happy to look into it again. The reason I'm telling you it's going to cost you a lot more is because we have looked at it. The return on investment, the private operators, well, all you gotta do is look at the guy who bought the Dodgers, bought it for parking lot money. I remember a few years ago, he made enough money to buy a $1 million baseball team. That's in a microcosm what you're gonna see. You're gonna see, also have had situations where the Johnson Street lot, we no longer get revenue from it. In a collective bargaining compromise, the small amount that City Hall employees paid was eliminated. So it's a compounding of a number of errors in judgment. You can ascribe some of them to the Off-Street Parking Commission, but there are other parties involved. It's pretty simple. If you wanted the plan, in a microcosm, you'd say, all right, we take a couple of lots, we prioritize them, do the things that we said. We set a market rate, we put an attendant in there. Council Cahill's made suggestions about automated facilities, but there's some significant issues with that. The capital investment is large. Vandalism has been a problem in a number of cities. So you're going to have to pay some high maintenance costs for doing it that way. Also, a person there who's monitoring the lot is helpful. You do that, you find out what you can make per space from a lot. And if it makes sense for the city to do it, you move on to number 3 lot. And you take some capital investment and do the things we said, and you have now enhanced revenues from the first 2 lots. You can carry the maintenance provisions and the employment costs for 3, and you work your way down.
Okay, why are we doing this?
Okay.
You're taking the money from the city of Lynn. Period, full stop.
If I can, let's keep cool heads. But I think, Mr. Connaughton, some of the topics that you're discussing now, and I don't want to speak for Councilor Creighton, but it seems that Councilor Creighton was hoping to get some ideas or some from the people who have the experience in handling the parking lots. And maybe that's the direction that we go. Regardless of how outrageous it may or may not be, people have brought up some ideas that are worthwhile to at least investigate. Would the Off-Street Parking Commission be capable of investigating and coming back with a number of options in writing, what the consequences would be financially, pro and con, so that we can look at it and we're not here spinning our wheels and discussing the same thing over and over again, so that we can address some of the concerns across the city? Councilor Calucci.
Jay just mentioned that $400,000 for the park in Brockton. That Wyoming's going to be at $400,000. We get $259,000. Even it doesn't make sense. We have to do something. Either sell them or lease them. And stop the bleeding. Could you check into that?
Well, we certainly can. And Jay, you have to, just as an aside, the commission's never been approached about the Wyoming Square, the plan for it. Jay was invited to meet in the mayor's office and found out a particular plan. Jay had made what I thought was a very good suggestion, in that there was, there's some land at the back of that lot, maybe housing authority land, that might make the increase in the number of lots enough to satisfy all of the merchants involved, and also not be quite as capital intensive as putting up what is going to be a fairly massive retaining wall, trying to recreate a slope and have a road running behind the Little League ballpark. So yeah, we've been thinking about all this, but we weren't asked to the dance. It was an estimate of how much this is going to cost, which was brought in by a private contractor from the city. I don't think he was asked about what it was going to cost. I don't know that that's a number that he meant to cast in stone. But it was really to say this is how much it cost. And so when you look at the number of spaces and how much needs to be spent, unless it's a really critical item, that's pretty pricey per per space. And in order to justify that, you're gonna have to have a lot of turnover, and you're gonna have to charge a fairly significant hourly amount. So, that's, you've got businessmen on the council, they know how this works. This isn't magic, this is something that, again, I went back to originally. It's a question of will, and it's a question of resources. And we have plenty of ideas, we've submitted the ideas over time, Councilor. If you weren't aware of them, I'm not entirely sure how the communication between the mayor's office and the council works. I'm sure it's nearly optimal, but, it may be that,
Well, you said you were invited to the dance, we invited you last year.
yeah, we can. And you
still want to dance with you now?
Yeah, you told us what a great idea
So,
it is to disband
I
the
want to
commission.
dance.
And we told you,
Okay.
we'll be happy to cooperate in disbanding it, and we gave you what we thought were the pros and cons. And it turned out that I think a number of councils said there were cons here, as well as, pros in disbanding. But it doesn't matter whether it's the commission, somebody is going to have to do these things. Council Bucci suggested private ownership, private industry do it. They can do it in a heartbeat. That's something that they will do. You will be able to maybe weigh the benefits of that from a financial perspective. The city wants to do it, and the city's going to have to assign somebody to do it. They're going to have to fund that department, and they can't fund it when that department is generating $250,000, probably could be generating $400,000. It gets, on a good year, $25,000, on a bad year, $250 to maintain those lots. It doesn't work. I don't think there's any other agency in the city that's asked to maintain capital properties with that kind of revenue to funding ratio. So, we're not short of ideas. We're just short of money. And there are various interpretations. The city has one interpretation of the statute, and we have, I think, one that differs with that. And so maybe that's the way to approach it, is to determine what the statute actually was intended for the commission. And if the commission can get its hands on those monies, we will turn it around as fast as we possibly can.
Councilor Cahill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate Commissioner Khan being here, Executive Director Fenton, and as well as members who are in the audience as well, Steve, who's down here. And I want to congratulate Jamie Cerulli on being appointed to the board, and also believe Commissioner Samar, we wish him to recover well. I understand he may have had an accident recently, and thank you for the hard work of Commissioner Glover, who recently has retired from the board. And I hope you don't think that you're being brought up here to the front of the class to be ridiculed. I think that what Councilor Creighton was looking for is more of an open dialogue. And I think that's kind of what's really the issue here is communication. I had no idea that you had followed up on that Brockton and Lawrence information. I would have loved to know that. I think that's really the reason why you're here today, is to give those types of updates. To your point with regards to the board, I think because we do receive communications from other boards, we get the minutes from Lynn, Water and Sewer, the Traffic Commission, there are some levels of communication. I think because there isn't that level of communication with your board, if I may just continue, because you guys spent a lot of time talking, I haven't had any, but been very patient. What I think is important is that there is a trust issue. And Attorney Cannon, you've read the statute, and we've said before, in order for us to give you that money, we're essentially taking that money and giving it over to an independent commission. And there is a trust issue there, in that we're unsure what will happen when the public money is transferred from our general fund to your account. We like the fact that you kicked around ideas. We want to hear those ideas. We want to hear that maybe you reached out to consulting firms. There are instances where we have funded. Here's an order from this year where we've transferred money from parking meter receipts to issues that to matters that you need. Electricity, parking ticket systems, somebody's part of somebody's salary. There is a willingness to transfer money, but again, we just can't give you a blank check on your word that you're gonna spend it. I like the idea from Councilor Capano for you to put together a proposal. The DPW today, unsolicited, mind you, asked us to spend $2 million on equipment that they needed. And but for that communication, we would never have known what that need was, and it was itemized. To Councilor Calucci's point, the idea of leasing it isn't entirely a bad idea. LAZ parking does the majority now, I think, in Boston. However, in order to do that, you need to have a twofold approach where the parking commission, or the parking department, needs to beef up metered parking spots, because obviously somebody's not going to park in a more expensive lot if they can just be on the street for free. But as someone who commutes to Boston every day, I choose to park in a parking lot because I don't want to move my car every 2 hours in a fear of getting a very large ticket. So it needs to be that counterbalance. And I think maybe if you came to us with some kind of discussion about first addressing some of the meters. I mean, it's deplorable conditions that are old meters. We've talked about this before, and I know that you haven't allocated any money for it. But I don't think you get an argument from this body, and I can't speak for everybody. But if you came to us with those $259,000 process and say, we're going to meet the city of Lynn, I don't think you're going to receive much of a pushback. Or if you do, at least we feel as though there's some dialogue. So I'm not here to discuss the merits of disqualifying you or ending the commission or not. But I think what we need, the purpose of this meeting, is for much more communication coming from your department, so we know exactly what you got to do.
May I respond?
Yes, please.
Well, when we were asked to, I think a couple of meetings ago, we were issued with respect to schedule. We weren't given any notice that I'm aware of what you folks wanted to discuss, quite frankly. We were just told that you'd like us to be here. So if the premise it then, you wanted us to come with a laundry list of things that we proposed to do, we would have prepared and done that. But we've been summoned before the council on a number of occasions for reasons that were not entirely clear, and the discussions kind of went in various directions. So we're happy to respond to specific, if as Council Creighton outlined it, we'll be happy to respond to it. But you're not, it's this idea that you're giving the money to the commission. Again, let's leave statutory interpretation aside for a moment. But the reason it was set up as an independent commission was so that the properties for which it was responsible, the monies that were generated by those properties would be within the purview of the commission to spend to improve and maintain those properties. So you're not giving anybody anything. You're taking it on the one hand, keeping most of it, and meeting out a very small fraction of it to carry out the responsibilities that you now feel the commission has failed to perform. So, I mean, that's, we don't make the rules, but to me, that it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's very unlikely to be an effective way of doing things. So, anyways, that's...
Yeah, before, I just want to, I missed one point, and before I go back to Jay Fenton, and Councilor Cahill still has the floor. And I'm hoping you guys can clarify this, and maybe I'm just a little slow. I know earlier you guys said the money comes in, it goes to the general fund, and then you're allocated certain monies back. I understand that. But then I thought you indicated that you sold the lot for $235 or $259, I can't remember what the number was. Now, I guess my question is, does that money go back into the general fund, or is that money in a separate account that you have control over, separate from what's going back to the general fund? There's a little confusion, and maybe I just didn't hear it.
I can clarify that. That money is maintained by the city treasurer and supposedly an escrow account. I haven't ever physically seen the money, and hopefully it's still there.
So you don't have to spend it. You don't have it to...
No, that money is available to be spent for capital improvements.
By the off-street parking commission?
Yes.
When we agreed to sell,
Yeah.
the earmark was we were trading a capital asset
Sure.
that we gave up, that money-generating facility for the commission to basically to cooperate with the city and these broader range. And we said that this money should go for capital improvements because it was capital that we.
And when was, and that makes sense, when was that sale?
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
And have you been holding that money since?
Yes.
Let's have some interest now.
Okay. Councilor Cahill.
Thank you, just one more point. And just to make this clear, when we talk about whether or not we're giving you money or not giving you money, the simple fact is that we are also, the city is picking up the cost of your employees. We're picking up the costs of pensions. We're picking up the cost of health insurance. So it is not just a simple, we make $250,000 a year from the city, we should have all that. When I run the numbers, and we have a disagreement about this, but when I run apples to apples, that true number, we basically make about $15,000 a year off the parking commission, parking department. And that is numbers from Rich Fortucci. So this idea of making the money and giving it to you, keeping it, we're basically breaking even.
Well, as a matter of communication, I have some financial background. I'd enjoy seeing Mr. Fortucci's analysis.
I will email it to you. What is your email address?
IJC511@comcast.net.
We just gave that to the entire city of Lynn, by the way.
Maybe I'll run for some.
Hold on, Councilor Trahan.
Thank you,
Back to
Mr. President. That's another thing that's always stuck to my claw in the last 6 months that Councilor Cahill has been going out and describing that the department loses money. The departments in City Hall don't make money. We have employees, and those employees provide the services for the city. So I don't think this one department, what they bring into revenue, we should take away their employees because they provide a service to us. You know, the mayor's office doesn't bring in money. A lot of departments don't bring in money. I totally disagree with that. I think the money that comes from those parking lots should go to the parking department. You know, tickets or something, when you write tickets at that much go, Jennifer, that's fine. But if this money doesn't go to these parking lots, then we're not gonna, you know, how the heck do we take care of $18,000? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And now we haven't done that for how many years, Mr. Fenton? How many years have you been getting $250 or $18,000?
Long time.
So, like, give me a rough estimate, 10, 15 years?
I didn't go back and look, but I've been for.
So you're talking,
10 years.
yeah, so you're talking there could be $3, $4 million in there right now, or there would have been all these years in the service. These have been beautiful parking lots. And I just wanted to answer Councilor Calucci's point of, you know, some of the lots. I just totally disagree with that. We're trying to bring the downtown back, and we're putting these condos in, and these people have gas, people come or whatever, where are they gonna park? You can't bring business back and then have no place for anybody to park. I mean, that's just totally ridiculous. We did the same thing with the schools years ago. We sold off the schools, and now we got these little space things next to our schools that the kids, you know, the kids aren't even in the school. So that, you know, that wasn't the answer too, because now we need those buildings back. So, you know, to sell the lots, I totally disagree with. To get the money back in the fund, I agree with you. Let's get them fixed. That's what we need to do. We can sit here and talk for an hour, but we just keep going back to the same thing, Mr. President. We need the money.
I apologize for interrupting you, Councilor. Councilor.
I tend to agree with most of what Councilor Trahan's saying about the funding. The spirit and intent of the statute had to be that money would go to the lots. Why would there be a commission in the first place? So, you know, without, you know, we keep beating around the bush here. You need money to do this. And you know, the language might be vague, but certainly the intention of the statute was that money would go into the lots, more than $250 or $18,000. That's a pretty big percentage cut, you know. So, I mean, that's really what has to be addressed. I think that I'd like to see proposals also, you know. And I know that I went to a couple of meetings, you know, a year ago or so, and I know there's a lot of ideas on that commission. Where do you go with them, though? Where do you go with them if you can't pay for any of the ideas that you come up with? You know, what are you supposed to do? So,
Councilor Calucci.
It's got Fuzzy's bedtime now. It's half hour past his bedtime. So I'd like to wrap this up if we can. I'd like the commission to get what we talked about selling an individual, all the lots and then see how much money we're taking in per lot. Can someone write this down so we can have this on record? You know, feasible selling it or leasing it. How many lots we are in the city, how much each lot gets? A letter to the mayor for her to fund what the general law says to fund to the parking commission. And you guys, you get, how long, a month? Couple of weeks? And you come back in a couple of weeks with all the answers we're asking for tonight. If anybody has any questions you want to ask, let us
I think
know.
a couple of weeks might be ambitious.
Okay, a month. How about a month?
Yeah, but we can try, and I think that one of the issues is trying to get you a realistic number of doing sale.
All right, what do you think you need for time?
We may be able to answer some of the questions very quickly, and which we will do, and then some we will tell you. It's going to take a little longer to develop the information.
Okay, so you'll come here in a month.
Or any other ideas that you think may be worthwhile pursuing?
And there's one other thing, if I may use your time to address complicated one of the things that I think, as we go back and forth, is sometimes we conflate the off-street parking with the park, and so those revenues are different. So if you met metered spaces off-street, that's one thing that we can do. We can't do anything about meters on street. And in fact, I think the council in its wisdom several years ago took 600 meters off the street. So that's something that, I mean, you folks can address, or I'm not sure how that works with the mayor, but you can address the issue of additional revenues from additional meters, on-street meters. And we will give you what we think works best. Is it meters? Is it monthly? Is it lot attended?
Council Creighton. Mr. President, through you to the members, I'm going to follow Council Pucci's advice and wrap this up, but I would like to just say thank you to the commission members as well as Jay Fenton and the rest of the council for their opinion. I know some points we disagreed on a number of things, but I think it was all good discussion. I would ask again, as we asked last year, for a game plan. And I would ask that you consider using the $200,000 that's in the escrow account or wherever it may be to invest in capital improvements that could increase the revenue that you so desperately need to maintain the parking lots as well as you said earlier, a step-by-step process to address it. So again, really just looking for action and communication. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made, seconded, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.